Who are you and what do you want with me? The shadows disappeared as I ran out of my tent with a flashlight in hand, only to hear a faint whisper in the distance. That was the moment Simon saw what was causing his horror. His full story is the finale of these 3 terrifyingly true camping stories. If you're ready, let's enter Puplux. We'd been planning this trip for months, a way to break free from the monotony of our daily lives and to reconnect with nature. There were 5 of us. We were childhood friends coming together for a weekend escape. Our destination was a secluded spot in the forest outside of our hometown. I was the one who suggested camping. My friends Sam, Tyler, Jenna and Leah agreed eagerly, each craving an escape as much as I did. The first night was everything we had hoped for. We set up camp in a small clearing, the trees like silent guardians around us. The air was fresh, carrying the scent of pine and earth, a natural remedy for our city-weary souls. We spent the evening around the fire, sharing stories and laughing, the stars overhead clear to see in the night sky. But the next morning our serene escape turned into a scene from a horror story. We woke up to find our campsite in chaos, tents askew, food supplies scattered and our belongings tossed around us as if a storm had passed through. Our first thought was as if a bear had come. It was the only explanation that made sense in the sleepy haze of dawn. But as we began to clear up, we noticed the footprints. Human footprints. Barefoot, circling our campsite. No bear had done this. The discovery sent a ripple of unease throughout the group. There were no reports of missing people in the area. No locals would wander the woods barefoot at night, and the footprints belonged to someone, or something, that didn't want to be found. We should have left then, but curiosity kept us there. As the day wore on, a suffocating feeling of being watched settled over us. It was a gaze we could feel but not see, a presence lurking just beyond the trees. The woods, so inviting by day, transformed as the sun dipped below the horizon. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, became the footsteps of an unseen visitor. This night was not relaxing like the first. The crackling fire seemed to whisper secrets in a language we couldn't understand. The wind carried sounds that mimicked human laughter, twisted and mocking. The smell of damp earth was replaced with something else, something foul, a stench of decay that seemed to seep from the ground itself. Sam claimed he heard whispers just outside his tent, voices that spoke in a guttural tone, promising things that made his blood run cold. Tyler, ever the skeptic, tried to laugh it off, but even he jumped at shadows that night. We all agreed this would be our last night here. We packed up early in the morning and head home. We huddled together for one more night, not daring to stray away from the fire's flickering light. The darkness beyond was complete, but together, by the fire, we were safe. The night stretched on, endless, as our previous night's visitor remained just out of sight. As the hours crept by, we all grew tired. I suggested we all went to bed, because if something was there, we would have seen it by now. We all wanted to believe my statement to be correct, as we nodded and headed off to our tents. I closed my tent behind me, got under the covers, and settled down to sleep. It was Leah who broke the silence, her voice, a whisper that cut through the darkness with the sharpness of glass. "It's here," she said. I sat up, fumbling with my tent and sleeping bag to get out and see what was going on. Just as I did, a sound unlike anything I'd ever heard erupted from the woods. A howl that was both human and not, a wall of rage and sorrow that seemed to echo through the forest. Sam grabbed his flashlight and we all looked around the campsite again, just to see what could have made the noise we just heard. But this time, there was no trace. "We need to get out of here," I said, and we did just that. We packed all our stuff back into the van and drove back home before dawn. The drive back was silent, each of us lost in our own thoughts, processing the terror we had just experienced. We spoke little of this afterwards, and we still haven't to this day, afraid that giving voice to our fear would somehow make all of this real. I parked up on the edge of the woods and started to venture inside. The deeper I ventured into the woods, the more I felt detached from the world I left behind. The air was fresh and invigorating. This truly was my happy place. The soft rustle of leaves and distant call of birds were the only sounds accompanying my steps. By the time I set up camp, I was enveloped in the forest's serene beauty. its untouched wildness spreading out in every direction. As the sun dipped below the horizon on my first night, a soft chill ran through the air which signalled to me that I should probably head into my tent and get some rest. That's when I first heard the whispers. At first they seemed like nothing more than the wind playing tricks on me, but as the night progressed they grew louder, clearer, and forming coherent sentences that twisted around the trees and slithered through the underbush. What chilled me to my core wasn't just the fact that the whispers sounded human, but that they called my name. Michael, in a pleading tone, begging me to leave. I wondered if my friends were just playing a trick on me. I didn't tell anyone I was heading out here, but maybe they followed me, or in the hopes just to play a prank on me. Not likely, I thought, so I just played the noise off as my own imagination and tried to drift back off to sleep. But that's when I heard it again. I opened my tent and shouted, "Guys, if this is you, it's not funny. You need to show yourselves right now." Nothing came back. "Alright, last chance guys, come on. I'm going to go to sleep and you should too." Although I was sure this would stop the noises I was hearing, I decided to get my phone out and set up my sleep recording app. I normally just use this to see if I said anything stupid in the night, but this time, if anything was out there, I could hear that in the morning as well. When dawn broke, I played back the recording to myself, wondering if I had any proof of the unexplainable noises from last night. Instead, all I heard was a faint whistle of the wind through the trees, broken up with the odd snore from me. The noises had stopped, and to be honest, I was relieved. So I packed up my day bag and slung it over my shoulders. I ventured into the heart of the woods, finding one of my favourite trails around the lake. The forest was alive with the sounds of nature, a symphony of bird songs, rustling leaves, and distant water. As the morning wore on, the trail led me to a serene lake, its surface smooth and mirror-like, reflecting the sky and the surrounding forest in perfect symmetry. I took a moment to rest at the water's edge, watching as small ripples disturbed the calm caused by fish swimming just below the surface. A perfect place to relax and be still. Continuing, the trail wound its way around the lake, offering glimpses of hidden coves and secluded spots that seemed untouched by time. I passed other hikers along the way, exchanging smiles and brief nods, a silent acknowledgement of the shared joy of being immersed in this wilderness. The afternoon sun filtered through the leaves as I made my way back towards camp. The day's hike had left me tired but satisfied. The thoughts of a warm meal and the prospect of resting my weary legs were welcoming as the campsite came into view. Back at camp, I set about making dinner. Once it was ready, I sat down to eat as the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange. As the sky was dark and the fire began to die down, I started to get ready for another night of rest. I unzipped my tent, climbed inside and got comfortable. Just as I closed my eyes, I heard it again. "Michael." The whispers back for a second night in a row. Annoyed now, I sat up and shouted, "Leave me alone!" Silence rang out until I heard a crack of a tree branch breaking behind me, followed by quick footsteps that faded away. I looked out of my tent, flashlight in hand, but saw nothing. I tried to convince myself it was just tiredness playing tricks on my mind, but the fear that settled in the pit of my stomach was too real. If someone wanted to mess with me, they had succeeded. So I decided to leave. I left these woods behind, but the whispers never truly left me. I still camp any time I get chance, but if I'm honest, I'll never go back to my old favourite place, within the Whispering Woods. Before you hear the final story, if you enjoy this video, please make sure to drop a like, so I know this is the kind of content you want to see more of. I've always found solace in the wilderness, away from the noise and clutter of city life. It's where I can hear myself think, where I can breathe. That's why I packed up my gear and headed out to the dense forests of the Appalachians. Alone. Yeah, I know it wasn't the smartest idea to go it alone, but I needed this. I needed to prove to myself that I could be self-sufficient, that I could face the solitude head on. The first day was exactly what I hoped for. Quiet, peaceful, with just the rustle of leaves and distant calls of wildlife as my soundtrack. I set up camp in a small clearing I stumbled upon, feeling a sense of accomplishment as I got my fire going and my tent up. It was as I was circling back from a short hike to gather firewood that I first saw it, a precise circle of stones, about 10 feet in diameter, sitting in the middle of the clearing, that I sure wasn't there when I first set up camp. Curiosity got the better of me. I approached, noting how each stone was perfectly spaced from the next, forming an intricate pattern that felt intentional and deliberate. It was odd, sure, but I brushed it off as a quirky find, maybe the remnants of a previous camper's boredom, and returned to my campsite as the sun dipped below the horizon. But that night things changed. The forest, previously a source of tranquility, now felt alive in a way that set my nerves on edge. I heard sounds, soft, indistinct whispers carried on the wind, a rustling in the bushes not caused by any animal I could name. The air was thick, heavy with a scent I couldn't place, earthy and metallic all at once. Armed with my flashlight, I found my way back to the clearing. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing the stones now in a completely different arrangement. Where before they had been a perfect circle, they now formed what looked like a spiral winding inwards. My heart raced. There was no way this was naturally here. But if it was a person doing this, surely I would have heard or seen them. I returned to my tent, but peace did not follow. The sounds grew more distinct, a low murmuring like voices speaking a language I couldn't understand. The scent became overpowering, filling my nostrils and making my head swim. I felt watched, observed by unseen eyes from the darkness beyond my campfire's light. The next day I tried to rationalise what I had seen and heard. I took photographs of the new stone formation, made notes in my journal, trying to find some logical explanation. I even ventured to the nearest town, inquiring with the locals about the clearing and the stones, but no one knew anything, or if they did, they weren't sharing it with me. Night fell again, and with it, an oppressive sense of dread settled over me. The forest no longer felt welcoming, it felt ancient, alive, and aware of my every move. The stones changed again, this time forming a pattern that resembled an eye, as if something wanted to know I was being watched. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? With every rustle of the leaves, every whisper of the wind, I felt someone or something was out there, messing with me. I was trapped in a nightmare, alone in the woods, surrounded by something that defied explanation. The shifting stones, the whispers, the smells, they were all too much for me. But I needed to prove to myself that I could do this. I could be on my own, enjoy my own company, and not let fear drive me away from having a positive experience. So I stayed in my tent, got into my sleeping bag, and tried to get some rest. That's when it happened. A shadow appeared from outside my tent, growing bigger and bigger as whatever it was getting nearer to me. I held my breath and shouted, "Who are you? What do you want with me?" I heard no answer, so cautiously started to make my way out of my sleeping bag until the opening of my tent. I grabbed the zip and quickly pulled it down, opening myself to whatever was out there. Nothing. I grabbed my flashlight and inspected all around my tent. Still nothing. No footprints or anything to indicate to me what was there. Confused, I made my way back to my tent. Did I imagine all of this? How could something be right by my tent and leave no trace whatsoever? I'll never know. It's been 2 long years since my camping trip, and my now girlfriend keeps pressuring me to go camping with her. Should I tell her the reason I can never do that? Or will she just think I'm crazy? If you're interested, the next true horror video is almost done, and when it is, it'll be uploaded right here.